Okay, we just learned how to multiply fractions by whole numbers. You're going to see in this video that the process, the rule, the algorithm for multiplying fractions by fractions is exactly the same, because we actually remember, we turned our whole number into a fraction by simply writing it over 1. 2, for instance, 2 is a whole number written over 1. 2 over 1 is a fraction, which is still equal to 2, so it didn't change it. So a little trick to keep in mind, going to come in handy in a few lessons down the road. So let's look at multiplying fractions by fractions. I want to reason again using modeling. We could apply the rule simply and have this done really fast, and that's what you're going to do most of the time. But I'm going to make you model a few just to get a visual picture in your mind of what's happening, because we don't want you just to memorize how to multiply. We want you to know what's actually going on when you multiply a couple of fractions. So let's look at a model. Let's draw 1/2. This is 1/2 of 1/2. So let's draw this second 1/2 first, because we're going to take 1/2 of it. So this actually represents that. And we know, let me get a different color here. Let's color in red 1/2 of it. We've seen that before. We know that that model represents 1/2 of this whole. Now this is saying find 1/2 of that. So we're going to cut it again and use a blue line this time, because we're going to take this one piece, we're going to cut it in half. You'll start to see a model now that looks a little bit like our Kit Kat bar, because we have to make, in order to figure out what, because we want 1/2 of that, so we're really looking at just this piece right here as being our final answer, but we got to go and divide up the rest of the whole in order to get a uniform pieces. So that's 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1/2 of 1/2 is equal to 1/4. Simple. Now let's apply the rule to verify that's true. We actually just proved it. You can't really use a rule in math until you've proven that it'll work. This model actually proves that this rule works, but let's apply the rule. 1/2 times 1/2, multiply the tops. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2, multiply the bottoms, the denominators. 2 times 2 is 4, so 1/4. We've proven it. We've also used the algorithm or the formula to solve it. Now let's do the second one. 1/4 of 1/2. So let's go ahead and draw 1/2 again. Get as close as I can. Color in 1/2 of that in red. And then it's asking us to take 1/4 of that piece, of that 1/2. So let's section this off into fourths. And let's color in, I'll just go ahead and do it in blue. We'll color in 1 out of that 4, but that doesn't represent our whole, so we've got to go ahead and divvy up this one too. Now we have the whole equally sliced into equal pieces. So this represents 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that equals 1/8. Now let's double check with the rule. 1/4 times 1/2. The rule is simple. Multiply the numerators. 1 times 1 is 1. And then multiply the denominators. 4 times 2 is 8. So it works. The rule applies to fractions by fractions also. We're going to make you in this lesson model a few. They'll be easy ones. They'll be easy for you to do. But we want to increase that visual representation so you don't quickly forget, because things get confusing. One thing you might have noticed, if you compare back to adding fractions, when we multiply fractions, the denominator does change. And this model shows us why. When we added fractions, we used a model to show why the denominator doesn't change. So there's a little real difference you'll have to get used to as we start mixing up having you add fractions and having you multiply fractions.